Welcome back to Bastard Sword. This is episode number 22. I am Drew.
And I am Josh.
Thank you for coming back. We're going to talk about some stealth games. We're going to do stealthy things.
Being sneaky.
We're going to be real sneaky this episode. We have a couple games we're going to talk about, but this is sort of a bit of a double feature. So we were talking about covering Splinter Cell Blacklist, which we're going to do, but we're also going to talk about a sweet little indie stealth game that we've mentioned a couple times on here called Intravenous 2. And we're going to not really do like a full deep dive on any of this stuff, but we've sort of been in a bit of a stealth mood lately. We've been enjoying this sneaking around and the removing pieces from the map and the knocking people out and taking them out without being seen. That whole thing. We've been kind of into that lately.
Oh, yeah. I sat down for like a week straight playing Intravenous 2. It just kind of caught me off guard. And every now and then I pick up like a neat little indie game that gets me like that. I'm sure you do as well, but you just kind of get sucked in and forget about your backlog. I did go back and like I'm gonna do a recap here where I've been on gaming because I had to finish out the horror season, right? So I had to play Alan Wake 2 and the DLC, and I got caught up on like all of that and finished like a second playthrough. So really great game. It was really cool to like see all of it come together, especially with that new DLC episode, The Lake House. I don't want to spoil anything about it, but like if you're like kind of on the fence about this game, about a spooky, weird, strange, maybe confusing story, and you haven't played the first game, just do it. It's great. It's awesome. And I'm trying to get back on Metaphor as well. I've fallen off.
Yeah. See, I wrapped up Silent Hill 2 remake. I powered through the end of that. Very, very good game. I have a whole lot of things to say about Silent Hill 2, but I'm going to make you play it at some point and we're going to cover it on here. So I'm going to try to avoid saying too much stuff about it because like I'm just I have that little tick in my brain where I'm itching to just go off on a huge Silent Hill 2 tangent.
Here's what the episode is about. We're not going to talk about those games at all.
No, yeah, fuck all those things. I just want to tell you about the Pyramid Head boss fight and how it kind of trivializes his character for the rest of the game.
Yeah, right. How iframes ruin the experience.
Exactly.
Well, no, I mean, I was going to ask. I wanted to know how you were feeling about that, but I figured it was mostly positive.
It's extraordinarily positive.
Good.
It's weird because I have a couple little nitpicks that I really want to talk about with that game that probably make me sound a lot more negative than I actually am about it, because like the things it does well, it does so fucking well. Like it is, I guess I'd probably call it a flawed masterpiece. That's kind of like I don't know, overused phrase, I feel like, but I think it was really appropriate for the original game and for this one in slightly different reasons. But yeah, just extremely, extremely good game. Like I cannot overstate how impressed I am at how it turned out, especially going into it with very low expectations. See our earlier episode bitching about how terrible we thought it was going to be.
Right. Yeah. I'll definitely get on it soon. I'm kind of like just waiting it out. I don't want to get too distracted and like spend for fucking ever not finishing Metaphor. So I like need to put like some real hours into that game. I've also been playing Helldivers with my band, so that's been fun. And you know, it's easy to do a mission or two and then suddenly it's midnight or whatever. Like you can go for hours and not really realize. But yeah, sneaking around, speaking of games that have like sort of that MGS5 energy, Blacklist, the Ubisoft classic.
I thought we could maybe for a second before we really dive straight into it, talk a little bit about stealth games are in a weird place. Like I feel like they don't really exist as a genre on their own that much anymore. Like it seems like they had a moment where stealth games were kind of all the shit. Like around the time the first Metal Gear Solid came out up through, I don't know, the third Splinter Cell or so, there were a lot of just whole standalone stealth games where that was like what the entire game was built around, and we were eating good, bro. Like there was a lot of good stuff. We did not know, but it seems like that has sort of faded, and now the sense I get is that stealth games don't exist, but also like that whole AAA open world archetype that is all giant, like big budget games these days have a lot of stealth game in them. It's just not really fully fleshed out. It's not satisfying in the way that a proper stealth game like the ones we're going to talk about can be. I don't know if you have any thoughts to add on to that. I just kind of wanted to throw that out there because that's sort of what I was thinking about as, you know, I've been looking at these games that we're going to be talking about.
I mean, I would say I agree. And maybe I was thinking about like, maybe that's why I've landed with like The Last of Us Part 2 being such a awesome stealth experience, even though it is just like be prone in the grass sometimes or like crouch behind something. But
I mean, that's stealth, baby.
That's stealth. Yeah. I mean, they don't find me, man. Like I sneak up on them. But I do miss that element. And I think that extensive stealth action game has sort of fallen off since somewhere between MGS4 and MGS5. And then, what little elements you get out of like cover games, action shooters that have like some of those elements. It's not technically a stealth game, but I love when horror games do stealth well. And the Evil Within 2, the way it utilizes the cover system is pretty effective. But like, give me prone, dude. If a game has prone and it's like useful in situations and like it slows down the pace a little bit, I like that. I don't know why.
I just want to lay down, man.
Tense. I just wanted to like rest a little bit, but no, I want to be like right outside the enemy's vision. Like that's when it's like super tense. And yeah, like as much as I do love MGS5 and I think it is a super like polished, well-built stealth game, like I think we have complained about like the open world and how kind of sparse and spread out it is, and how much time you spend like just navigating and like using vehicles and stuff like that kind of ruins the experience until you get to like the few bases that are in the game.
Yeah.
And for that, it's just variety. It's just the lack of variety that, there aren't more areas to see.
Right. Yeah. I guess that's a good segue. I had a question for you. I didn't really run this by you, but I have my own little thesis on this. What do you think is important? Like, what makes a good stealth game?
Dude, that's such a dense little question.
It is.
Yeah. Oh, God. I would say creativity, the ability to go through an encounter and use like a variety of tools and like effectively have like player choice in the actions of the game as you're progressing and like getting through. And then it's like variety. So like one half is like how creative you, the player, can be going through an encounter, and then how creative the game developers are making those encounters. And I think that's like, MGS4 is a great example of that. And I know it's not a lot, but it has awesome encounters within the game.
Yeah, and there's some pretty heavy overlap there from kind of the conclusion I was coming to, which is that, designing those encounters and giving you a whole bunch of different gadgets and just ways to get through this, giving you a bunch of different angles to approach from and a bunch of different ways to approach from those different angles. And then the other big thing for me, well, I guess I have two other big things. The one is the AI. Like, there has to be a sweet spot where the AI feels smart, but it's actually dumb enough that you can easily exploit it in fun ways. And then it also has to be able to stand up to being caught. Like when your plans go wrong, that's when a good stealth game can become great to me. And I think both of the games we're going to talk about today do this really well. And Metal Gear, like you've already mentioned Metal Gear, that does it really well. It doesn't really become like a fun, satisfying action game, but it becomes a very intense, oh shit game that gives you tons of options to deal with the people that have found you and get back to a position where you can try to have the upper hand on them. Like it doesn't just give you an instant game over. Instant fail stealth kind of sucks and puts me off of stealth stuff a lot, but stealth that allows you to fail and then still kind of rally and scramble and come back, that's that good shit.
Well, that's like why a lot of players don't like those encounters where it's like, oh, they spotted you, and then you watch the animation, then it restarts, and then they repeat the dialogue. I think like the Spider-Man games have some of that shit with the Mary Jane encounters.
Yeah.
Those, yeah, like that shit is just not fun. And, speaking on like exploiting the AI and like getting the upper hand on them and like not going like full action, but having like an edge in combat, like MGS3 is a great example, actually. And, I see in the notes here, you've got MGS3 remake, which is something worth talking about too. But like, yeah, just the tools that you find as you progress through the variety of scenarios, like becomes super helpful, especially when you get caught and you're like, oh, I just found a shotgun. That's great.
Right. Yeah, Metal Gear is really the gold standard in being able to fuck with the enemies without making them feel like stupid. Like I think back to what sold me on stealth games in the first place was the original Metal Gear Solid, when you first come up the elevator and you're just outside Shadow Moses. And I remember spending so long as a dumbass little impressionable teenager, like having the guards spot my footprints and like follow me in circles around the little containers. Just that kind of things where, they're smart enough to be able to pick up on these different things and like recognize the things that you're doing. But they're also dumb enough that you can like take advantage of that really well in these just really, really just fun and satisfying ways that make you feel like just the coolest like action hero, not just like, jumping out and taking a bunch of bullets, but just you feel like the smartest little boy, just like getting the upper hand and fucking over all these little stooges. It's so good.
Yeah, for me, that was MGS2 because like that was the first one I played, and just like the magazines and little things like that, like getting them to like look at a porno mag so you can sneak by and then like knock another guy out or do whatever. MGS3 has the little like cigarette thing. It like blows gas in their face and knocks them out. Yes. I love that gadget too. That's so fun.
Yeah, the gadgets. And I think really that is what separates these proper stealth games from the sort of light stealth that has kind of crept into all of these AAA games, which I think a lot of that stuff can be fun. Like I'm a lot more positive on, the Far Cries and the Watch Dogs and whatever, all those Ubisoft formula AAA games that have these like light stealth mechanics. I generally enjoy those, but it's just the depth and complexity of the systems and how they interact with the AI to, create all of these. I can't think of the word I'm looking for here, but like just putting all these systems in place so they can like naturally clash with each other and create these emergent scenarios. That's the word I was looking for. Yeah. Emergent situations. Yeah, just the depth of these systems and allowing these situations to form, I think is what separates a proper like full-fledged stealth game from any of these just general, generic, and again, I use that term not super condemningly. I don't think that's a word, but fuck it, I like those games in general, but it's a different vibe. Like a proper stealth game just gives you so many more opportunities for that kind of thing, and it makes these encounters so much more satisfying, and that's kind of why I love these games that we're going to be talking about today.
I agree, and I was going to say with that reaction, that emergent gameplay that you're talking about, I think MGS5 does that really well by adding the slow motion. Like there's so many last minute saves, like when you get caught and you get that like 3 seconds to like shoot a guy or knock him out or do something before he raises the alarm. And Splinter Cell Blacklist has a very similar system with the tagging, because you don't even have to like expose yourself from cover. You can just well, I think you do, but you just put like your cursor on them and tag them, and then you can just knock out like 3 guys in a row.
Yeah, you have the little execution mechanic.
Yeah, I mean, it's like it's a last ditch save if you have the points for it too. Like it works really well with the flow of it, like how it refreshes after you take out like a few guys, and then you have like 2 or 3 more shots to do it. So I just like, I think they implemented that flow to the gameplay really well, even if they are like kind of grabbing things from other Ubisoft like adventure open world games, Assassin's Creed or whatever.
Yeah, and all of those games do have that little bit of leeway where it's just going back to the AI thing I talked about, where you can't make them too smart. Like these people would obviously be seeing you in real life, but instead it just has a little bar that fills up, and depending on the game, it can, play with that a little bit, and like Metal Gear or Splinter Cell give you these options to hit the oh shit button and get out of it immediately versus just kind of like, sneak away and let the gauges drop a little bit. Right. But yeah, you have to have that little bit of these people are actually pretty fucking stupid in real life, but in a way that works very well for the game. But yeah, it's just, there's a lot of good and fun and satisfying situations to be had from these stealth games, and it does feel to me like we're at least bordering on a little bit of a revival of these stealth games. Like it feels like there's something bubbling up. Like you already mentioned that I have the Metal Gear Solid 3 remake in the notes here, like that's coming out. I feel like that could be a watershed moment for getting this type of game to kind of come back into vogue. And there's been rumors floating around of a Splinter Cell remake or just, some kind of refresh of the series for years now. Sam Fisher has made cameos in the newer Ghost Recon games and things like that, but a full Splinter Cell game hasn't been announced yet. But, that's been a rumor that's circulating for a while. So it seems like a solid time for these type of games to make a comeback. And I don't know if that's just me being optimistic, like wish casting here, but it does seem like that's kind of coming sometime soon.
Oh yeah, no, I think it's a good sign for us, and hopefully we'll get that. There's also Kojima talking about doing another stealth action game. What was that one called? I remember watching the little trailer with the Horizon Zero Dawn guy.
I forgot about that.
Yeah.
Let me see. This is good content. I'm Googling on a podcast here.
Who knows? Yeah, like who knows when we'll actually get that, though. It could be 4 or 5 years down the line, especially, with the wait for Death Stranding 2. But yeah, I don't know. I think that the MGS3 remake could start something like that. Obviously, they're refining a lot of the elements in the game, which is mainly like getting stuck in menus and bouncing back and forth and doing that kind of stuff. And Splinter Cell, like for Ubisoft, we've been talking about them floundering and having issues. Like that is probably one of the things they should focus on. Like they should try to make a quality, like company selling big title for company preserving title, maybe, get some sales and focus on making like a really solid quality game that isn't, exploited like
right,
Star Wars game or whatever.
Yeah, which that's a good segue, because I have some notes about that on Blacklist. So let's get into Splinter Cell Blacklist.
Hold on. One thing I wanted to ask you. I thought you were Googling, so I was trying to buy you time.
Oh, I was, and actually, I don't think he announced a name for it. He just said he's making a new action espionage game, but I don't think there was a solid name announced for it.
Okay, I thought it had had like a code name or something.
Fizzant.
Fizzant, yeah. So that's cool. I want that. But how do you feel in most games? Like we were talking about Far Cry, Ghost of Tsushima, Horizon Zero Dawn. Like, how do you feel about the meter system? Because I feel like a lot of games have that now.
They do. I feel like I don't know. It becomes very transparent. Like it very much gamifies everything where you just start to see it in wireframe mode, and it's, I don't know, less immersive, I guess. I don't really buy immersion as a concept, but like it just really kind of makes it obvious what the game's doing, but also it feels necessary. Like I don't know what you would replace it with. I think it would be less fun if everything was just like Arma or something, where these people had realistic sight lines and they see you and, you know, that's it. It's just those type of games exist. They have a niche, they have their own space, but for the type of games that, you know, are going to sell and, you know, these type of fun experiences, that kind of, it's less fun. Like it's more realistic, it's less fun. So there's a trade-off there. So I'm generally fine with them.
I agree. You don't want to scare off players. I get that concept. I think there's like a design, like a perfect design somewhere in between, just with how much it's used. And obviously, like a lot of games, probably that you and I have played too, like have a more subtle way of doing that than having like a meter fill above their head. But I get its necessity. And like in the case of Splinter Cell Blacklist, I think it works. Like it's not such a nuisance that it doesn't make sense, or you know what I mean? Like it's not game breaking in any fucking way.
Yeah, like there's probably a more graceful way to do it that someone could figure out, but I don't feel like it's a detriment, really.
Yeah. As long as it's not like you're walking away from the enemy and they're looking right at you and you see the meter go down because you're like a certain distance away and they're just like, oh, where'd he go? You're like, dude.
Yeah. So this is a little bit of a side tangent on that, but I know I've mentioned a few times that I actually really like the newer Ghost Recon games, and they have like, that is so fucking obvious in them. And I get served like shorts on Facebook and whatever of Ghost Recon clips, and it's people thinking that they're looking like the most badass, like tactical fucking wizard that has ever existed. And it's them literally like laying in plain sight in front of a whole squad of enemies, but they have like a little bit of dirt thrown on their face so they can't be seen, or they're very carefully sneaking 15 feet away from people directly in front of them in plain sight, and no one's seeing them until they open fire on them, and then they're still like, oh my god, what's happening, and just kind of stand there looking around for a few seconds. And it's that kind of thing that is like, when you're playing the game, that is necessary.
Right.
You know, if you tune it too hard, then it quits being fun. But when you're watching it, just like watching someone else play it, or like seeing that stuff in a vacuum, it can look pretty fucking goofy at times.
Well, just MGS5 that shit. Make like the best enemy AI that's ever been made again.
That's that's not too big of an ask.
No. I mean, yeah, that is sort of the thing with, I don't mean to keep like jumping right back to Metal Gear, but the way that their AI has been tuned, like, and progressed through the games, like it just gets better and better. Which I would like to see more games like have their AI be more like creative and anticipate you and do like, I just think that's interesting and makes for like a better variety of gameplay.
Yeah, I can agree. And now that you've mentioned that, I'm thinking on it a little more. I feel like you could get around a lot of the really transparent, like the you've been spotted progress bars filling up with better level design, like
Yeah.
just giving you more ways to creatively approach these situations and stay out of sight, or giving you more tools to avoid being spotted. And like Metal Gear Solid 5, you mentioned that is a good compromise, because it has basically the bar. I mean, you have the little bit of leeway, but it gets around it by just giving you that little slow motion period, which,
Right.
is still in effect kind of the same thing, but it also makes it feel less obvious that it's just a progress bar. Like, it's not like you're just watching this thing, tick up until this person realizes that, oh, that's a person I'm staring at. So yeah, I think there definitely are, better ways to get around that, even though I don't necessarily have a problem with that as a mechanic.
Yeah, I don't either. I think some people have. I feel like I've seen complaints about it on the internet, sort of like the yellow paint argument and stuff like that. But I don't think it's detrimental design. I do like more minimal HUDs.
Yes, definitely.
And not like, not to like harp on immersion or anything like that, but I feel like it is more engaging when you're actually like, you can keep an eye on your enemy and like know that he doesn't see you, as opposed to like seeing the bar like on the side of your HUD, and then you're like, oh, okay, well, I can just I can crouch now, like, and just hide.
It's the whole change from like Metal Gear Solid 2 to 3, where they take away the radar, so you can't just play Pac-Man staying out of the cone of vision on that, and you're actually paying attention to the environment.
Yeah, that's totally fair. But no, I think I agree with you completely. Like level design and, how you go through, because I don't think the early Splinter Cell games had that at all. I think they just detected you. But the game itself gave you like lots of avenues to like, you could like climb a rail and then like, what's the word I'm looking for? You like balance across like a pipe to the other building and climb through a window.
Yeah.
It always gave you options. And I would say Intravenous 2 is also a game that is designed really well with that in mind.
Yeah, I'm very surprised, and this is jumping ahead a little bit. Like I'm very impressed, I guess, rather than surprised at the amount of options that game gives you, considering what it is and the perspective of the game, and the small development team and everything about it. Really, yeah, it's a very impressive game, which we'll get to here in a few minutes. You want to talk about Blacklist for a few minutes?
Sure. Yeah. We've been kind of dodging it, haven't we?
A little bit, but that's all right. Yeah. So yeah, Blacklist came out in 2013. It was on the 360, PS3, all of those things. Had generally positive reviews, but the series at that point had been kind of fumbling around, sort of trying to find its new footing. So at this point, stealth games were, they were still a thing, but Splinter Cell was trying to kind of move away from that into more of an action direction, which they had done with like Double Agent, and then especially Conviction, I think, was the game before this. That it was very action oriented.
That's the one everyone hates, right?
Yeah, everyone hates
one.
Yeah, that's the trash one. Everyone hates it. It was very much an action game. I mean, you were still sneaking around a little, but it was a lot more of a straightforward action game. And so this Blacklist came out, and it was sort of like it tried to kind of split the difference. It introduced a lot more of the hardcore, I guess, stealth elements of the original games, while still maintaining a little bit of that action feel of Conviction. Like, you could still approach this as an actual shooter if you wanted. I don't think it would be a great game like that, but the option was there, and it was definitely more action oriented than the originals.
I had to check. Okay, so Conviction is the one that's more like Blacklist in design. It also is the one that makes Sam more like Nathan Drake-ish.
Yeah.
But the one before, Double Agent, that's the one that everyone hates, where he like shaves his head and goes all like Breaking Bad. Yeah, that one's the one people don't like.
Which I did not play.
I didn't either.
Yeah, I played a little bit of Conviction. It was okay, but Blacklist is actually very good.
Yes.
But yeah, generally it got pretty positive reviews, but people had just sort of, fallen away from Splinter Cell as a series at that point, and it did not sell super well. I didn't find the exact sales figures, but it looks like it was one of the worst selling games in the franchise, which is kind of a bummer. It's also the most recent game in the franchise. So
Damn.
Yeah, people have, come around on this. It has a little bit of like a cult following at this point. I think this game has aged extremely fucking well, actually. It still looks fantastic. Like, this game looks really, really well. I don't know that modern games necessarily look a whole lot better than this. It's kind of in that Max Payne 3 area where they were just kind of like operating at the height of working with all these baked in lighting systems and everything, whereas now, we're moving towards dynamic everything and ray traced everything and blah blah blah. We're being able to do all this stuff in real time. Like, we're getting to the point that we can do that as convincingly as we were faking it with games like this. But yeah, this game still looks really, really good, I think. And it plays extremely well too. Like, it's just a really, really fun, well-balanced, deep, and just satisfying game all around. It's pretty, straightforward. Again, we talked a lot in this episode about how we don't really get this type of game anymore. It's just like a linear single player level based campaign. You just, go through the story missions like one mission at a time. It has kind of, it plays around with the game structure a little bit. It almost gives me a little bit of a Mass Effect 2 type of feel where you have like this home base that you return to between missions, and you can, talk to people there and do a little bit of side missions for some different upgrade materials and that kind of thing. But in general, it's a very straightforward, linear, single player campaign, all these distinct levels and everything that is actually, pretty refreshing to go back to. Have you, go ahead.
Oh, no, I want to hear your question.
Oh, no, I was just going to ask if you've played this very recently, or did you play this around the time it came out, or what was your history with this?
I played it on PS3. Yeah. I think an old roommate got me into it, and we played co-op on it a few times. And that was like sort of my introduction to the game. And then I think I finished it on my own time, just playing single player. Which is a really cool feature, and like something I also miss in games like that, to have either like a online co-op or, split screen option, to just like run the whole campaign. And the way it's implemented in this game works like surprisingly well, because it's super smooth with like the takedowns and like cover movement and all that stuff. So you can like coordinate with your partner really well. But yeah, so that's how I played it. And then I've come back around to it like occasionally. I'll re-download it and play through it a little bit. But it's just kind of like a fun game to revisit every now and then, honestly.
Yeah, I missed this when it came out. I had kind of moved on from Splinter Cell. I played the original trilogy, all the games up through Chaos Theory, which was really good. I played them on release, and then I was just like, okay, all right, that's probably enough for now. And it didn't help that they kind of started to move away from what made them special. And so by the time this came out, it just wasn't really on my radar. I think you actually were the one recently that was talking about how good it was that made me look into it and grab it. And yeah, I just played through it. It's been a couple months ago, but yeah, even just coming to it 10 years later, like it is extremely good, and it's just like polished to a sheen, and all the different options they give you, it's very, very well designed all around and satisfying. You mentioned a little bit of the kind of multiplayer and co-op stuff. I guess it's worth mentioning the online servers are no longer online. So
yeah, I figured.
Yeah, that is a bummer. So that whole section of the game is just not accessible anymore. And it kind of sucks, because the way that is integrated into the game was probably pretty cool at the time, but it also now just means a whole chunk of the game is like not available to you. So I mentioned the structure of it a little bit, but you have different types of side mission activities you can do, and most of them are various like different variations on sort of multiplayer type of things. Some of them are explicitly like multiplayer missions that will give you currency or give you experience or whatever towards these single player upgrades. Some of them are these basically like they're kind of like Rainbow Six Vegas terrorist hunt missions. There are these little like discrete kind of multiplayer arena type setups that feel like they're designed to be co-opted through. And some of them are just this like wave-based horde type levels. And they all feel like they are designed with multiplayer in mind. A couple of them can be played solo. Some of them can't at all. But it's kind of a bummer that whole section of the game is just, off limits now, but you can still sort of see the shape of what it was, and it seems like it was a cool way to integrate everything into the single player experience. So I appreciate that, but it also sucks that it's gone now.
Yeah. Actually, like you just reminded me of that, because I was like, wait, I have played those missions. I kind of forgot about that whole side of the game. And yeah, like I don't understand why it's not just like host, like.
Yeah, even if they just put some kind of a patch to, like, I don't know, make it be able to be peer-to-peer or something.
Yeah, exactly. Like, why aren't you allowed to do that? Like, it worked for Resident Evil 5 when you and I played it just fine. Yeah, that doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. But yeah, those missions are actually a lot more fun multiplayer. It works a whole lot better. And I usually skip them when I'm just playing like single player through the campaign itself.
Yeah, I did a little bit of them just because I wanted to try to get the upgrades from them, but not a ton. I mean, it was fun enough for just like a short little blast of like Splinter Celling through an area without committing to a whole campaign level. But yeah, definitely. You could tell it just is a little lacking compared to a proper level without having someone else there to go through it with you.
Right. But I will give it to like this game's credit. When you're just playing, like engaging with those mechanics, even in like a side thing like that, it's still fun to play because of how tight the combat system, the cover system, the shooting and all that actually is. So I really do appreciate that about this game every time I come back to it. And speaking on like the graphics, like we were saying, this is like 7th gen, but they didn't lean into like the bloom and the grimy, like sandy browns and yellows. Like, I mean, the first area is like Afghanistan and it has elements of that, but it looks more realistic. It does look very polished for what they did with it. And like, besides like the face models, I think like everything else like looks pretty solid and detailed. And then, for each mission, you have like the customization, which is something I really enjoy. You can like set up like your armor, your styles, your sidearms, main gun. And as you progress the campaign, you get better equipment. So, and yeah, you do those side missions and can get some of that stuff too. So I really enjoy any stealth game that offers that, especially on like a loadout screen. I just think that shit's fun.
It is. And what I really like about this, even compared to the older games, is the freedom it gives you to just, I guess, be an asshole, to just actually kill everyone and go through it lethally. A lot of stealth games tend to, they don't necessarily force you into non-lethal play, but they heavily encourage that, which is cool and has its place, but I like that this game doesn't really punish you for that, and it gives you the option to play through it lethally, without punishing you or anything for that. And it's a really fun and satisfying way to play the game. I mean, all the non-lethal stuff is there and is cool and good as well, but there is just something about kind of like John Wicking your way through it that is just so fun that a lot of stealth games don't necessarily give you the freedom to do, at least not at the level that this one does.
Dude, first mission, they give you they're like, here is the triple headshot button. Just triple headshot your way through this game. And I mean, like I said, you have to obviously do some more manual things as you progress, but it's very rewarding with the refreshes. So you come into a room and they've got like a hostage and you're just like, oh, dude, I got this. I'm gonna shoot everyone in the face like right now.
Yeah. How it works, I guess, just for anyone that hasn't played it, you can use your different types of visions that you have. So you have your night vision goggles that you also can upgrade with your currency and just through unlocking different stuff through the game to give you different, infrared views and different types of detective vision shit that lets you see people through wall. And you can tag up to 3 enemies at a time. And as you go through and take people out normally, you fill up this gauge that allows you to just press Y or, whatever equivalent to instantly take out anyone that is within range of you that you have tagged. So yeah, you can just pop off 3 just instant headshots in this cool little look how badass I am cutscene that genuinely is pretty badass and feels good every single time.
Yeah, I mean, it's dumb, but it's fun. So
it is extremely fun, and the level design is so good on this all throughout. It does that perfect thing that I was talking about earlier that makes a stealth game good, where it gives you so many different ways to approach every situation with all of these different tools. And it doesn't give you an overwhelming amount of tools. You basically have 3 different gadgets and a handful of different categories, which amount to an EMP thing to knock out cameras and sensors, or you have smoke grenades, gas grenades, different kind of things like that, and a crossbow that has different effects. But it gives you just enough tools to feel very versatile and so many different ways to approach every different situation. There are all these pretty open areas with a lot of verticality, and you can climb up to ledges above or below people to drop down onto them or pull them down over ledges, and tons of little nooks and crannies to drag bodies into and hide, and different opportunities to bait enemies around corners and freak them out. And it doesn't let up throughout the whole campaign. And it also manages not to fall into that pitfall that I think I've mentioned on here a couple times. I tend to get burnt out on third person shooters towards the end of them a lot of the times, when they just start throwing these heavily armored enemies at you that just turn into bullet sponges. This game, it does that to an extent. Towards the end of the game, you'll start getting people that are wearing helmets and body armor and stuff, but it never stops giving you opportunities to get the jump on them and take them out sneakily and just clear them from the map by being a very smart and good boy spy. And it is incredibly well done and satisfying. This is one of the funnest stealth games I've ever played. I think it might actually be my favorite Splinter Cell, even above Chaos Theory.
Yeah, see, I haven't played the original trilogy in a long time. I think I only played the first 2, and I remember them being really hard. And when I came around to Splinter Cell Blacklist, I was like, damn, they made it easy. But then I got sucked into the game. I was like, it's fun. So, why should I complain? But yeah, the original trilogy is super in depth, especially with the lighting shadow system.
Yeah, which this has that as well. You can take out any of the lights in the area and no one can see you, even though you have these giant glowing orbs all over you and shit. Whatever. It looks cool. Who cares? It's fucking stupid, but whatever. Yeah, the original games, they shied away from the lethal options. It was much more of a Metal Gear Solid type of you want to just knock people out or avoid them entirely, which again is still an option in this game, which is extremely cool, but it doesn't force you into that.
Yeah, you're given a lot more opportunities to pretty much take down every enemy you encounter, which, you know, if you explore areas, you'll find more of that. And sometimes I think there's sometimes like little rewards around the maps. But yeah, the avenues that you can take through everything, like the way you can climb over buildings on the ledges, it sort of has that like Arkham effect too. Like the Arkham games had really good elements in their stealth, and I didn't even think to mention that game or that series a minute ago, because it does a lot of that stuff where you're pulling people off ledges, you're sneaking up behind them, crawling under them in grates. So yeah. That's fun stuff. I like that.
Yeah, you're Batman as shit in this game, and it's great.
You're the most Sam Fisher that you could be, unless you're the other guy who is just as Sam Fisher. So he doesn't have any skill issues.
Yeah. And I guess I don't know that I have a whole lot else to say on this. We should probably at least mention the story.
What is the story? That's what I wanted to ask you. What is the story? Because
it's a thing that exists.
He gets betrayed. There's betrayal, and
I mean, a little bit, kind of, but it's more just like, what if someone was a badass? The game. That's pretty much it.
What if you were really cool?
Yeah, what if you were really cool? And what if you did what needed to be done at all costs? What
if governments feared you?
Yes.
That's the whole gist.
Yeah, it's a bunch of Tom Clancy shit. There's a bunch of tactical military gibberish. It's whatever. So there's some terrorist organization that has created the Blacklist, and they're launching these different attacks and taking out security and fucking it doesn't fucking matter. It doesn't matter.
It's XCOM 2. It's the alien advent is taking over planet Earth.
Yeah.
And Sam Fisher needs to shoot them in the face.
Yeah. So this is a game where you are voluntarily surrendering to be held in Guantanamo Bay so you can fucking stealth your way out of it. And then you're breaking into some top secret underground Department of Defense bunker to save the fucking president's niece or some shit like that. It's just whatever, some person in the chain of command. It is the Tom Clancyest shit. It's fun enough of a story. It's surprisingly, it's not super jingoistic. It's not like a Call of Duty shit, but it's not that far removed from it either. I don't know. I have a soft spot for this just really stupid dad coded government espionage thriller type of shit. I've been watching the Reacher series on Amazon Prime, it's basically on the level of that. It's dumb as shit. It does what it needs to without being embarrassingly bad, but it's also not great.
Yeah, I mean, it's that my dad loves that shit too, so I totally get it. Yeah, and you're this is you got kind of a soft spot for it, even though it's you can suspend some disbelief to enjoy it for what it is, even though it's silly as hell.
It's incredibly silly. It's probably a little problematic if you actually, look at it. It's I'm gonna torture everyone I see because I'm a badass, and that's what needs to be done.
I'm gonna look at this and a humanitarian angle.
Yeah, it's fucking it's so dumb.
Is Sam Fisher really that ethical?
No, I had one other thing I wanted to mention in the campaign that I thought was pretty cool. So these games also had, I think it was starting with Chaos Theory. One of their big selling points was the multiplayer spies versus mercenaries mode, which had the gimmick of the spies were playing typical Splinter Cell, third person stealth mode, and the mercenaries were a first-person shooter. Yeah. So it had these different perspectives, which was pretty cool. And this kind of works that into the story. That might, I don't know if it was the first one, because like I said, I kind of skipped out on this series after a while, but it has a couple missions where you're playing as one of Sam's partners, and it's a first-person shooter, which is actually kind of cool. Those are not my
yeah.
favorite missions in the game, but they're not terrible either. And it's a neat change of pace. And I like that they kind of worked that series hallmark into the actual campaign.
Yeah, I forgot about that. I
Yeah.
remember the multiplayer mode, but I kind of forgot that they worked it into this game as well. That's cool. I was thinking, I just wanted to say this game is like the CSI meme where he puts on the sunglasses and it's like, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it basically
That's
is.
basically what the whole game is. But it is fun as shit. And like, what did you get it for? Like $10?
It was less than that. Yeah, it was literally just a few dollars. And I mean, It still runs fine. Like I played it on my Steam Deck. It runs flawlessly on there and it works really well. I mean, good game. I would be down for a modern Splinter Cell, although with Ubisoft being Ubisoft in 2024, I don't know what that would look like.
Yeah. I mean, all they have to do is piece together the parts. They just have to look back on their successful games and critically acclaimed titles and figure out how to do it. But you know them, they'll find a way to butcher that somehow. But yeah, the game is optimized very well. It runs pretty solidly on just about any system I've played it on, even including the PS3. So hell yeah, it might sound like a jet engine, but it still runs.
It works.
Yeah. But yeah, man, Intravenous 2. I'll just dive right into this one. I think it came out in early access December 2023. Came out from Explosive Squat Games. They're a very small indie developer of eight staff members. The official release for the game, I think, is August 15th, 2024. But yeah, it's like an indie stealth action game. It has a top-down view that's kind of inspired from like classic Metal Gear, and then it uses a lot of elements from like the Splinter Cell series. It is surprisingly in-depth and like it has really good sound design, weapon customization. It has a slightly engaging story. It's about like a John Wick plot, but it does what it needs to do to move things along. And yeah, it's about killing drug dealers and shit like that. But yeah, mechanically, like this game is surprisingly in depth for a top-down retro style game. Drew, have you ever played like the classic MGS titles?
Oh, like the original, like
Metal
what is it?
Gear,
Yeah,
Metal Gear
the
1
like
and 2.
MSX and NES ones.
Yes.
I'm not sure. I think I have on an emulator for just a few minutes. I don't have any like significant experience with them. No.
Yeah, I think the MGS3, like the HD collection, had both of those games inside of MGS3. I know that's confusing because it's like a game within a game within a game.
I follow.
Yeah. I played them on that. So I played the first two. I really enjoyed Metal Gear 2.
Yeah, I've heard it's very good. Yeah.
The actual, I mean, it is like really close to Metal Gear Solid, like despite being like a very grounded, like sprite grid oriented game. It includes like a lot of the mechanics that like the series is known for. So
yeah, I've heard Metal Gear Solid was basically a 3D remake of that game, actually. So
yeah, it's just Kojima playing with cameras and Legos and shit and just zooming in on things. He's like, now move it here. But yeah, so like this game kind of follows that tradition of like being top down and allowing you to go prone and crawl. So you can like, you have different advantages where you can like crouch, prone, stand. You have different speeds, different loudness. You have like a light meter that shows like, you know, if you're in shadow, how visible you are. And like it's all built into this really nice like retro style HUD too. That's super easy to follow. It explains the basics to you and then just kind of lets you roam free into the missions of the game. But yeah, I think it's pretty cool how they managed to pull off like the Splinter Cell stuff with lighting. You can shoot out lights, disconnect power. There's fire mechanics, explosives, throwables. So you have like a really in-depth loadout where you can pick your armor, your throwables, your gadgets, weapons, and then there's like sub menus for every weapon to like add like sights, grips, magazines, on and on. Like it's crazy how much little details are like packed into the weapon customization of this game. So, and you complete missions, you get money. You can also pick up money through the missions to upgrade stuff. And I don't know, it becomes a really addictive cycle of progressing the story and then like just upgrading your gear as you go, and then like getting cleaner and cleaner with the missions. And I played most of the game on like stealth. You can go for non-lethal a lot in this game, but I ended up using a lot of bullets. So and it's cool how it integrates that, because like, even if you're using a silenced pistol, you're not totally silent. But if you use it like a stun gun, they don't hear it at all. And, you could be like beside a wall and then the guard will hear you and come through, and then you have to deal with everyone. And this game also gives you that turnaround that we were talking about earlier, where, you can like set your loadout to have shotguns and grenades and whatever you want, Molotovs, and go through and just blast your way. And with the concept of this game, I never played the first one, so I don't really know how it works. But the main character, they did an MGS2. There's a new character, but then the main character returns, and you can play with play as both of them. So when you play as like the first game's protagonist, like I guess he's like more inclined to be like kill crazy, and you can go in guns, but you're encouraged to go in guns blazing in some cases, but you don't have to. You can play everything stealth if you want. So yeah, what did you think of your experience with this game? I know you haven't really got too far with it yet, but just want to know your thoughts.
Yeah, so I've done the first few missions, and like I was really surprised by how in-depth it is. Like you mentioned the weapon customization and everything, and the lighting system, and just the huge like amount of options you have for getting through everything. Like it's very cool, and like it has just way more detail and way more different options like for your approach and everything than you would expect from the top-down perspective. Like I think I called it when I first saw it like Hotline Miami if it was Splinter Cell, which I think is pretty which is pretty accurate, but like it gets so much mileage and so much more than you would expect from that perspective, and like the different lines of sight and everything. We talked for quite a while at the beginning of the episode about the like your spotted meters or whatever we want to call them, and this game doesn't really have that, right? Like I feel
they
like
just go after you.
They just fucking dialogue. See you.
They have like dialogue over their heads, so they'll be like, "What the fuck? Who's that?" And then they'll start shooting you. So it's pretty quick. Like you have to be on your toes with it.
Yeah, it is very quick, and I appreciate how like I just fast and lethal the violence in this game is. Like you really have to be pretty smart about how you approach these things, because once people see you, I mean, you can get out of it. You can have little shootouts with people. You can escape these like panic situations, but it's pretty fucking intense. Like you're very squishy, and they will wreck your shit very, very quickly, and I appreciate that. Like it seems like you have to be, very considerate of everything that's going on. Like you have to kind of carefully plan out your approaches, what you're doing with bodies and everything, or it will come back and bite your ass in a way that, like we talked about how Blacklist was kind of easy compared to the old Splinter Cell games. It's also extremely easy compared to this. Like this is a pretty fucking ruthless game in a very cool way. So yeah, I dig it. I have not put a ton of time into it yet, not for any particular reason. Then I just have been playing other shit.
Yeah.
But yeah, I am a big fan of what little I've played of it.
Yeah, I mean, I think the way they did what did you say?
Oh, how fucking lethal it is, and like the very quick time to kill and time to get killed.
Yeah, with how punishing this game can be and how quickly it moves on you, like, yeah, it's definitely way more challenging than, say, Splinter Cell, Blacklist. I would say it's less forgiving than like Metal Gear, even when you get caught. Like Snake can take a lot of bullets. So you're gonna get like a few shots before you're like really hurting or dead. So this game has a fun way to play on that, though, that like it knows that you're gonna quick save. So you have limited quick saves per mission. I don't know if that's like a thing Hotline Miami has. Like,
yeah, I don't think Hotline Miami really has any quick saves. I think it's basically a do the whole mission. I could be wrong on that.
Yeah.
I've played a bit of it, but I think it's basically you have one shot to do this. If not, you're just restarting from the beginning, the missions I played are not like extremely long, but they're not super short either.
Right. Yeah. It kind of like you can set your own pace. You can fly through them if you like know what you're doing. And like that was what I noticed as I was playing the game. Like I just was getting better and like quick saving less. But yeah, you have limited quick saves. So you can, you kind of have to like plan your next move. And that was sort of how I played, because I like clearing missions without getting detected and like just being super sneaky. So, that also added a lot to my playtime, that I like would go through and grab a guy, but then a dude would see me through like a window in the corner, and I wouldn't, like the angle was just right for me to get caught, which they also just released a recent patch that added like some weapons, and I think it may have cleaned up some things. So I don't know if that'll make it like a slightly easier or what. But yeah, I like the pace of this game a lot more than Hotline Miami, for example. I just never got into that game. I wanted to like it for what it was, but this game gives you more like you can blast through, you can be fast and like sneaky, or you can take your time, knock guys out, clear pathways, which is like I spent a lot of time doing that. Just kind of like the way I play Deus Ex too. Just sort of like making sure that like if I have to come back or if I'm exploring, like everyone is knocked out and I can just like just get out. And that's the other thing with this game is pretty much all of the missions ask you to find a target. So it's someone on the map and you don't know where he is. And like locate him in a room or whatever. And then you have to like evac from each mission too, because you're just like a normal guy. So you have to just run back to your car basically. So that is an interesting element to clearing missions. And it can depend on like how much you've raised the alarm and alerted the guards when you're like trying to get out of there.
Yeah, and I can appreciate that the kind of more simplistic graphical style of the like direct overhead sprites. It almost has like a Project Zomboid type effect of letting you do a lot more in-depth detailed things that, you would have this huge overhead on trying to like animate all this shit and everything in a like realistic AAA 3D engine or something.
Right.
Just like all the stuff with, opening windows, breaking windows and stuff, which I guess, that doesn't sound super impressive on its own, but just like the amount of different approaches and like how many different ways you can move through this environment and do all these different things and affect all the lighting and everything is all like just really detailed and in-depth in a way that kind of works with the graphical style. Like I mentioned, being surprised by how detailed a lot of this shit is, especially coming from a small indie developer, and it just kind of all plays in really well with that graphical style. And like I feel like you wouldn't be able to accomplish this level of like intensity or interest in these levels that you're going through in like a more elaborate type of game without dumping significant resources into it, I guess.
Yeah, it kind of works in the way of like RimWorld or Project Zomboid, where like they've set up all the pieces just to make different maps and scenarios that it feels fresh enough each time that, you know, like you just have all these cues for what things are. Like you see windows, you break through windows, breaker boxes, shooting out light posts, like, and the way that it displays those overhead and you still have to like aim at them is a really interesting element too. So
yeah, that's another thing. Yeah, it is. And that's another thing. I thought, like, looking at the trailer, I was like, man, this would be a perfect Steam Deck game. I actually could not imagine trying to play this on a Steam Deck.
Yeah, it feels a lot better on a mouse, I think. Just
yeah, it relies heavily on, you know, aiming with the mouse and interacting with things that way.
But, you know, you could just do like pacifist. You could just sneak through and punch people and never use a gun.
Even still, I think it's... I appreciate the way you kind of mentioned the in-depth sound system. So like how this works, you have a walking speed that determines how much noise you're making. And, you know, you can climb over different fences and stuff that'll make different amounts of noise. But you adjust your walking speed with the mouse wheel. So you just move around with the WASD keys, but you like scroll up and down to adjust how fast you're walking and like how much you're sneaking and everything in a way that just works really good with the perspective of the game and just with the overall design of it. That would, I can't imagine how that would translate to playing it on a controller or the Steam Deck or whatever.
You might be able to toggle it. I don't know, toggle it up and down. But yeah, that especially when you get the flow of the game and you can like roll back and like sneak through quietly and then like jump into like kind of running, you know, like pick up the pace and get out of the way.
Yeah, because it's not just like a 3 system, like you're crouching, you're prone, or you're standing up walking. Like it has what, like 10 different speeds of you know how quickly you're moving that all have these little subtle differences in how much noise you're making.
And then it depends on like what you're walking across and how much gear you're carrying. Like the weapons that you carry have like sound ratings. So depending on your weight, you could be like rattly and noisier. And then your guns have like an audible range too. And there are like certain guns that are better, you know, like stealthier. So yeah, like the thought that they've put into the give and take with these elements is really cool.
Yeah, it's just it keeps like building on itself in just ways that you wouldn't necessarily expect. And again, I probably just repeating myself, but it's so much deeper than it looks like it would be at first blush, and I really appreciate that. So yeah, I'm down to continue playing it. I just need to stop playing the other things that I'm doing. I need more time.
Yeah, I know. I need to catch up on the backlog, and I've been working like crazy. And in this game, I think I got like probably 3/4 of the way into the game. Like it felt like the climax was on the way here, but it's roughly 20 hours of gameplay, and there's like some optional missions where you play as the main characters of this game are Sean and Steve.
Sean and Steve, hell yeah.
Just 2 dudes fucking killing drug dealers and shit. But yeah, you get optional missions and then like optional objectives. So like it can kind of influence you, like how you're going to approach the mission for a certain reward. And also like a better relationship with your partner. But yeah, it's a pretty cool game, definitely worth checking out. But yeah, it feels like a really solid package in such like a small studio, tiny game. And
yeah, very impressive for the, you know, size of the people putting it out.
Yeah, and I was just going to say, like, they continue to recycle those assets through the game. So like it doesn't necessarily like go places, like it doesn't change drastically as you progress, but the variety of the scenarios and like the different avenues and approaches that you can take do. So like that enhances the gameplay as it goes on.
Yeah. So I think Intravenous 2 possibly is a good game. Maybe that's kind of what I'm gathering.
Yeah, no, it's pretty good. I would recommend it.
Yeah, cool. So I think that's probably pretty good. I don't know that I have anything else to add to that, but stealth games, I like them. I think it would be neat if they came back. I think Intravenous 2 actually would be a solid blueprint for a company. Just make the new Splinter Cell that, but like AAA. Yeah.
Yeah. Just it's sort of like the Zelda Breath of the Wild theory, where they just made the game on like the original Zelda template and then like transferred it to 3D. Just do that.
Yeah, just it's not that hard, guys.
Be as smart as Nintendo.
Yeah, just be Nintendo. It'll be fine.
No,
except for the part where you try to like patent troll the Power World people. But anyway.
Yeah, don't be Nintendo and don't be Ubisoft. Be a staff of 8 people and like one lead developer who make a pretty solid fucking game.
Absolutely. So yeah, I think this has been a decent-ish look at some stealthy, sneaky type of games. Yeah, I am here for whatever stealth game revival does or does not happen. I'm interested in Metal Gear Solid 3 Remake. I am very curious to see how that comes together and how that kind of affects the industry, because I know I mentioned earlier that really does seem like it could be a cool watershed moment to get more of these types of games coming back around, because I think they still have a lot to offer. Yeah.
I hate to say it, and like especially after what Konami has done to me, but like that one's looking like a day one buy for me.
It's looking pretty freaking good.
Yeah. So we'll get there, I'm sure.
Yeah, we will get there. We'll come back around to it. So I think this has been Bastard Sword then. So I believe it has been. Yes. So thank you guys for listening. If you enjoy this, like, share, subscribe, comment, ratings, reviews, whatever things we normally say. I'm not really sure.
Yes. Give us your detailed pumpkin pie recipes. Send them. Give us all the information for your pumpkin pie.
All of the recipes you can give us as sneakily as you can. If you could just, kind of sneak in there and do like a triple pumpkin pie recipe automated headshot, something. Yeah.
Put it in code for us and we'll figure it out.
We will figure it out. So yeah, thank you guys for listening. I am out.
I'm out. Bye.
Bye.